we reached an agreement on patrolling, and with that, the disengagement, we have gone back to where the situation was in 2020. There are areas which, for various reasons, after 2020, because they had blocked us, so we had blocked them. So दो तरफा था, Bob. We have reached an understanding which will allow the patrolling. For example, you spoke about Depsang. That's not the only place. There are other places also. I think the understanding, to my knowledge, is that we will be able to do the patrolling which we were doing in 2020. It's a good development. It's a positive development, and I would say it's a product of very patient and very persevering diplomacy. At various points of time, people almost gave up. You can say, this has happened. So we have always maintained that, on the one hand, we had to obviously do the counter deployments. Side by side, we have been negotiating. We've been negotiating in fact since September of 2020, when I met my counterpart, Mr. Wang Yi, in Moscow at that time.
अब चलते हैं चाइना की तरफ, जहां आज एक बड़ा डेवलपमेंट हुआ है. फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी ने ब्रिक्स मीटिंग के ठीक पहले he has announced that some agreement has been reached for disengagement and patrolling. So I'll be very keen to know some details, how it will work.
Well, I think what Foreign Secretary has said is what I can also say, that for those who have not heard that we reached an agreement on patrolling, and with that, the disengagement, we have gone back to where the situation was in 2020, and we can say with that the disengagement process with China, you can say, has been completed. So, so far, I would say that's as much as I can share with you. I'm sure in due course, iske details वगैरह निकलेंगे.
So, will now India be able to patrol in the areas of Galwan, Depsang?
No, you see, there are areas which, for various reasons, after 2020, because they had blocked us, so we had blocked them. So दो तरफा था, Bob. So what has happened is we have reached an understanding which will allow the patrolling. For example, you spoke about Depsang. That's not the only place. There are other places also. So I think the understanding, to my knowledge, is that we will be able to do the patrolling which we were doing in 2020.
Right. So what does this disengagement will finally mean, and how do we now see India-China relation going forward?
I think it's a good development. It's a positive development, and I would say it's a product of very patient and very persevering diplomacy. That at various points of time, people almost gave up. You can say, this has happened. So we have always maintained that, on the one hand, we had to obviously do the counter deployments, but side by side, we have been negotiating. We've been negotiating in fact since September of 2020, when I met my counterpart, Mr. Wang Yi, in Moscow at that time. So it has been a very patient process, maybe more complicated than it could and should have been, but whatever it is, the fact is, if we are able, as we now have, to reach an understanding regarding patrolling, regarding maintaining observing the sanctity of the LAC, then I think what it does is it creates a basis that the peace and tranquility, which there should be in the border areas, which there was before 2020, hopefully we will be able to come back to that peace and tranquility. And that was our major concern, because we always said that if you disturb the peace and tranquility, how do you expect the rest of the relationship to go forward? So we'll have to see. I mean, ye abhi jo understanding jo thi, it was reached only today. So I think we have to see what the consequential.
Yeah, so we think it is a very important development. So will it be right to speculate that it will have a positive impact on trade and investment?
No, look, I would say right now it's your right to speculate. It is my caution as a minister to be careful in responding. So it has just happened, there will be now meetings to see what should be the next steps.
Okay.
So I wouldn't go so fast.
Okay. Understood. Yeah. So let's look at the big picture again when we talk about India's century. So how do you see India-China engagement and relationship going forward? Because if India's century has to be defined as really India's century, this whole balancing game between America and China becomes very important. How India is going to play that game?
I would take your question in a way in three parts. India-China, India-America, and India vis-a-vis China-America. India-China, in a way, if you look at it, we are the only two countries with more than 1 billion people. We have a certain civilizational history and, all of that people know. And today we are on a track of, I would say, economic recovery or rejuvenation. And there is no question anybody who's predicting, if you are predicting developments of this century, definitely you cannot leave India and China out of that equation. We are very, very prominent, very key almost in a way, I would say. But here is the challenge for us, which is that we are neighbors. We have unresolved boundary issue. There are, they have been rising. We have also been rising. So if two neighboring countries, two large neighboring countries rise next to each other in the same time frame, it's not easy. There are very, very few historical parallels for that. So managing this double rise, you can say, that too in proximity. If one was in some other part of the world, it's a different issue. I think these will require a lot of skill and a lot of deftness and diplomacy. And the truth is our capabilities will change, our influence will change, our ambitions will change. Both of us will naturally want to be bigger and more visible and more effective in the world. So how do we get an equilibrium in our relationship? I think this is one of the big issues for us and for them. On India and America, I would say, starting with President Clinton's visit in 2000, we broke out of that American mindset of India-Pakistan hyphenation. And since then, from Clinton to Bush to Obama to Trump to Biden, actually you will see India-US has grown steadily all this time. I would particularly, as someone, I've been dealing with this relationship for more than 40 years, I would particularly say last 10 years, and I'm not saying it because I'm politically part of the government now, but the last 10 years, see, a lot of the ideological hang-ups that we had vis-a-vis US, we were able to put that behind and forge ahead much more confidently than, because a lot of the constraints were also self-imposed on our side. So I do think today that there is a very, very strong convergence between India and US. It is strategic, it is political, it is very deeply technology driven. When I look at the future of technology and what it means for global balances of power, I think it's certainly an area, a domain which will be very important. If you look at the people-to-people relationship, the size of the community out there, that has changed. So I'm very confident that that relationship will do very well. It won't be automatic. I mean, बीच में कुछ problems हो सकती, but I'm confident we will always be able to deal with those issues. Now you have US, China. Clearly there's a very sharp rivalry between them today. So these are calculations that they have made about each other. I think where we are concerned, we have to make calculations from our interest point of view. That we have to look at the world situation and say, okay, what are the decisions, what are the choices, or what are the issues on which, taking this step will help me in what manner. And I think that's really what we would like to do. That at the end of the day, if we are looking at a foreign policy which has a very sharp sense of what is our national interest, but also a sense of what is global interest, I would definitely say we would make those calculations and take those decisions and create, the right partnerships which will serve